support of the measure. As you know, post-gas tax swap, the sales tax on diesel is really the only level of funding, state funding available for public transportation. It's a volatile source, and so having this commission assess whether or not that is a sufficient revenue stream to address all our transit needs would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gus. Nice to see that you still elicit laughter from the Republican staff.
We appeal to all.
As always. Thank you, Paul.
Michelle Hook, representing the Sierra Club, California, and we're in strong support of this bill.
Hello, Melinda McLean on behalf of the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District, also in support.
Okay. Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments? Would you like to close? Oh, Senator Lowenthal?
Yes, I do. Where does the public transportation account, how does it receive its money? And what does, I heard that, I think from Mr. Watts, that there's how much money is in the account now, and how is money typically allocated? And taking $750,000, what does that do?
Okay. Well, Mr. Lowenthal, per your good work and of your colleagues, as you know, post-gas tax swap,
right,
the sales tax on diesel has become the sole source of state funding for the public transportation account.
Right.
Those proceeds are split 3/4 going to the State Transit Assistance Program, and that's flexible funding that's primarily used for operations, and then 25% of the proceeds go towards the non-STA share, which is basically for state obligations. So that funds intercity rail, it funds CTC operations, PUC operations, and so
that's the public transportation account?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So right now we believe that the PTA, as per Mr. Watts' comment, has a fund balance that's roughly $270 million. A lot of that funding, though, I believe is set aside for intercity rail. However, we do believe that there is the $750,000 we don't think would make a dent in taken away from state operations for local transit service or from the intercity rail program.
Okay. Senator Huff?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm struggling to understand the need for this commission. We have California Transportation Commission's already tasked with advising the legislature and formulating and evaluating state policies and plans for California's transportation programs. So why don't we just ask them to come up with a study on this, as that's already their purview? We have 300 boards and commissions. Why are we creating another one? Who wants to tackle that?
I'll tackle that one.
Since the author's not here.
From representing the Association of New Boards and Commissions? Catherine?
Yeah, representing the state's boards and commissions. The question of how to fund transit has been almost a third rail issue in the legislature and in other fora. And while the California Transportation Commission has been pulling together information on what the cost is going to be, and Caltrans has been putting together and for years pulling together information on what we need, nobody's been addressing how do you pay for it. Moreover, a lot of these state reports end up not going anywhere. So what we are hoping is that this will provide an opportunity to hold hearings around the state, to get some public input, to get some sense and draw attention to transit needs at the local level. Additionally, we will be able, or the commission will be able to go out and look carefully at this issue of what's the cafeteria of funding approaches that can be used. That's something that the public agencies haven't been able to do or haven't been willing to do. Or even if they do it, they don't generate the public attention and the public discussion that an outside committee of responsible and involved citizens can do.
Well, okay, I'm a supporter of public transit. I've sat on a board before, and I'm not sure this really gets us where we want to go, other than spending another $750,000 of scarce funds. And so I guess that's what I'm struggling with. I think you could just as easily direct the CTC, say, this is what we want, and we want you to hold hearings throughout the state or whatever, and then you've already got existing staff. You're not out there recreating the wheel that may or may not get you where you want to go. The best thing that helps public transit that I have seen is high gas prices and other things that tend to, and congestion, because they like to
Is that a commitment?
where they want to go. No, I'm observing. I'm not committing, okay? There's two different things. But I understand where you're trying to go with it. I'm not sure this is the vehicle to get there.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Do we have a motion? Moved by Senator Simitian. Anything to add from?
Thank you for letting me present.
Nice job. Yeah. Do we feel an obligation to beat up on Assembly staff before we let this go? All right.
What goes around comes around, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I'm aware.
The motion is due pass
That
and
might be very bad for you, Senator Simitian.
due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Rules. Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines.
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon. Huff. Huff, no. Kehoe. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Rubio. Simitian. Simitian, aye.
You have 3 votes. You need 2 more. We're going to leave it on call so that you can get the bill out. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have item number 10, AB 674, from the much esteemed member from Contra Costa, Assemblymember Bonilla, and her staff will present this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you once again for allowing me to present this bill on behalf of Assemblywoman Susan Bonilla. Current law authorizes counties to impose a $1 surcharge on vehicle registration fees to fund fingerprint identification systems, otherwise known as the CalID program. AB 674 will simply repeal the sunset date, which is due to expire on January 1st, 2012, and would make the CalID program permanent. The CalID program is crucial for state and local law enforcement as it allows for the electronic capture of criminal suspect fingerprints. Currently, 34 counties participate in the CalID program. AB 674 helps enhance public safety and is an invaluable funding source for public safety, especially considering the state's ongoing fiscal challenges. On behalf of Assemblywoman Susan Bonilla, I respectfully ask for an aye vote. And with me today, I have the sponsors of the bill, Louis Brown representing the California State Sheriff's Association, and Lieutenant Wayne Billowit on behalf of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to testify in support of the bill and to answer any questions. Thank you.
Well, we apparently lost Louis, so we'll go just to you, Lieutenant.
I'm Lieutenant Wayne Billowit on behalf of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. We are one of the many sponsors on this bill. This CalID funding is our lifeline to LiveScan. This is our lifeline to the identification systems we use in our cars and what we use for all types of offender registration. So we strongly urge your support. We do have technical experts if anyone has any specific questions on the technology or how it works or what it does. But with that, I'll pass on, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Barbara Ferguson, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. We're also a sponsor of this bill, and I also have a couple of technical folks here, our CalID managers, to answer any of your questions. And for the reasons that Lieutenant Billowit stated, please support the bill.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Danielle Higgs on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association. As Mr. Billowit said, this is critical for local law enforcement officers, particularly in the field related to DUI arrests and fingerprint identification. For those reasons, we are a proud co-sponsor of this bill and urge your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Leslie McFadden on behalf of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, here in solidarity with our sheriff. This is a very beneficial and useful fee, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association in support of the bill.
Good afternoon. This is Spencer Bolt. I'm with the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office here to voice our support for this bill as well.
Good afternoon, members. Marla Marshall, excuse my back, representing Sheriff William Gore and the San Diego County Sheriff's Department in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Mr. Wolf.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Wolf, I hope you heard Senator Huff's support for higher gas prices. Maybe you could, maybe you could have an epiphany as well. I'm only joking if anybody's watching for Mr. Huff's district.
Thank you.
They wouldn't believe me.
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. David Wolf here with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And we're opposed to this bill, members, for a number of reasons, mainly regarding Prop 13 as well as Prop 26, a measure approved by voters in November of last year. We believe this bill violates the Constitution on two levels. And let me just allow myself to sketch this out real quick. First, locally, we do believe the measure as a continuation and removing of the extension of this tax, this $1 tax, does require a 2/3 vote of local county residents, and that is not listed in the bill. And we also believe the measure requires a 2/3 vote of state residents, or not state, the state legislature, my apologies, it's been a long day, of the state legislature on the grounds that the money is collected by the Board of Equalization and the Department of Motor Vehicles. Because the funds are collected by state agencies, we do believe that should also require a 2/3 vote of the legislature under grounds of Prop 13 again and 26, Article 13A, Section 3 of the California Constitution. For those reasons, we're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Any other witnesses in opposition? We have a question from Senator Gaines.
Yes, if I could ask a question of Mr. Wolf.
Go ahead.
Just in terms of clarification, because I've been very confused about Proposition 26 in terms of its implementation. Have there been any court cases that have clarified when a 2/3 vote is necessary? And is that something that we're waiting for in terms of how to respond to? Actually, we've had a number of issues throughout this legislative year in terms of interpretation as to whether we should be voting simple majority or 2/3 votes on fees.
Senator Gaines, it's a good question. In order for us or some other organization to take legal action, the bills would need to be passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. And to the extent, certainly with this bill, but also with many others, that hasn't happened yet, there was nothing to litigate at this point.
Okay, because just to clarify, I support the intent of the legislation, but I've got a problem in terms of whether this is legal in my mind on the simple majority vote versus the 2/3. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gaines. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion? The motion would be to pass to appropriations. I'll move it. Any concluding comments? You've done a marvelous job.
I just ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask the Secretary to call a roll.
The motion is due pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon? Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Kehoe? Lowenthal? Pavley? Rubio? Semidion?
All right. You have, it's 2-2.
No,
Semidion. Senator Semidion, you were an aye vote.
I'm an aye vote on the bill.
Yes. Just unusually quiet with his. All right. So the vote is 2-2. We'll leave it on call. You need 5 votes for it to pass out of the committee. Item 12, Assemblymember Dickinson. AB 716.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I want to let you know that my boss appreciates the fact that you're allowing me to present the bill today for him. AB 716 does three things. It eliminates the sunset date for the passenger safety program. It increases the time period within which infractions can be considered for a prohibition order from 60 to 90 days. And it establishes that a person in violation of a prohibition order would be guilty of a misdemeanor. This program was established by SB 1561 in 2008. There was a reporting requirement included in the bill, and the Sacramento Regional Transit District and the Fresno Area Express, who are authorized to implement the bill, have reported that the bill lacks enough teeth in it to implement the law, and I would like them to let you know why they think they need more teeth to implement the law.
Okay. Again, my name is Mark Lonergan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Sacramento Regional Transit District. And what we hear time and time again from riders on our system, and particularly on the light rail system, is the need for us to make a safe and secure environment for them to ride. And in looking at the tools we have to do that, one of the things we were lacking was a way to exclude repeat problem riders who are violating the law from riding the system. And so we looked around the country and came up with a scheme from Portland that excludes riders for a period of time based on violations of law, repetitive violations of law. And we approached the legislature in 1561 to try and implement that in California. And what came out of that was a demonstration that allowed us in Sacramento and the folks in Fresno to exclude riders under certain conditions, basically for violating the law. We did that, and our authority for that is sunsets at the end of this calendar year, and 716 would extend that. In our implementation of the bill, we found that there were a few things that we needed to actually make it more effective. One was the period of time that we looked at repeat violations. The original law limited that to 60 days. The 716 would extend that to 90. It gives us a broader window to deal with people who are repeatedly violating the law, and that would be qualifying for an exclusion order. The other thing that it lacked that was significant was no penalty. If you were issued an exclusion order and you rode anyway, we could do nothing about that. This allows us to arrest for a misdemeanor for violating an exclusion order, which is probably the single most important addition to the legislation. And the final thing, of course, is just removing the sunset, so that this would be an authority that we would have moving forward. So we think it's a very effective tool, will be a very, very effective tool for us in dealing with just people who can't control their behavior on the system. It is limited, if you look at the legislation, to certain kinds of violation of the law, so we're not willy-nilly excluding people. It also has an extensive due process element to it that we've implemented, and that gives people a chance to plead their case and gives us the ability to rescind portions of an exclusion order so they can go to work or medical appointments if they really need the system. So we believe there's adequate safeguards in there as well for the people that may be facing exclusion. With me, I've brought retired Lieutenant Mark Sakuyue from the Sacramento City Police Department, managed our security program for many, many years. So if you have any specific technical questions, you can assist me with that, and I would urge your support of the legislation.
Through the chair.
Yes, Senator Sweeney.
Forgive me, there was a first point and a third point, and there was, of course, a second point, which I just missed. Could you go back and tell me the third had to do with eliminating the sunset. The first had to do with 60 days to 90 days. The second sort of beefing up of the legislation was what again? Was allowing us to impose a penalty, or providing for, I should say, a penalty for someone who was issued an exclusion order and rode anyway. And so we had no way to enforce the exclusion order. The legislation allows us to arrest that person as a misdemeanor. Okay, so that's the new language in the bill.
Yes.
And then you referenced the due process through the chair. What are the due process protections?
Well, there's an initial 11-day stay, and then there's a requirement in the bill for a pretty extensive review process that's done by the transit agency.
Let me try it this way. If there was somebody on your system who was a bad actor, and you want to take action against that bad actor, what happens? Who does what?
We would issue an exclusion order to that person.
No, be a little more basic through the chair. So what's a thing that people shouldn't be drunk and disorderly, I'm guessing, on the system? Is that a fair assessment? Is that one of the things we're trying to deal with?
Let's say you were arrested for selling narcotics in a station. On the arrest, we could issue an exclusion order.
Okay. What if it was something less than an arrest?
If it's, for example, interfering with the movement of a train, and you do that 3 times in 90 days. After the 3rd time, we would, in person or through the mail, we can do that as well, under the provisions of this, issue you an exclusion order that would stop you from riding the system for a period of time.
Who's the we? Who's seeing this?
It would be issued by our police services unit. It would be issued by a sworn officer in our case.
Okay. And so there's a sworn officer. The sworn officer observes the behavior, and after 3 of these incidents, then there might be this exclusion order. Who actually issues the exclusion order?
It would be issued by either let me clarify the sworn officer piece. We have a number of folks that are authorized under existing law to issue citations. So it could be any one of those individuals. Basically, our transit officers, sworn officers, of course, transit officers who do primarily fare enforcement and can enforce sections of Penal Code 640. This willfully blocking train movements, as an example, would be one of the things they could cite for. And our transportation supervisors also fall into that same category as transit officers under the law. So any of those 3 could issue an exclusion order.
And do they do that without any hearing whatsoever?
Well, once it's issued, it prompts the due process review. Okay. And the issue at the exclusion order itself is automatically stayed for 11 days, I believe. And so that person can continue to ride even though they've been issued the exclusion order for those 11 days, allowing them the opportunity to appeal.
And then how does that appeal work? Let's say I think it's been unfair and I want to appeal. What do I do?
We have identified a neutral person within the transit. Well, first of all, after the exclusion order is issued, it's reviewed internally to make sure it was issued properly. If it was, assuming that it was, then it would go to a hearing officer designated within the transit district, not part of our police services unit, separate from that. In fact, we use the hearing process.
But hired by the same district, yes.
Yes, it's an internal
compensated
review.
by the same district.
It's an internal review.
Okay. And then what happens?
The reviewing officer has the option of upholding it in full, vacating it, or modifying it, depending on the facts that are presented. And then that would be our final decision. After that, the person has the only option of taking it to court.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to make a comment or two here, and I know the hour is late. I'm going to support the bill, and I don't for a minute discount the seriousness of the behavior problems that you're trying to deal with. And when I've been a passenger myself in a mass transit setting, I've experienced some of those. So I'm sympathetic on that. But I'm thinking of the recent airline case with the college student in the baggy pants. And I don't know if you all have followed that case, but this is the college student with the baggy pants who was pulled off the plane and told he should hitch up his britches, to use an old-fashioned expression. And any of us who've traveled by plane, I think, would probably have the experience sometime in the last 10 years that while it's a challenging job, there are occasionally people who let the authority go to their head. And I get a little nervous about due process and people who, just like there are folks who ride the system who have a bad attitude, occasionally there are people who work in a system who have a bad attitude. And we've got a system here where folks are essentially able unilaterally to tell someone you're no longer riding on the system. And the appeal is to someone who is an employee of the system. So what I want to ask the staff on behalf of the author to do is just if you'd communicate the concern of at least one member of the committee about sort of cautioning all who have this authority that they need to exercise it with discretion. That, we live in a system where people have rights, and those rights need to be respected. That includes the folks you're trying to protect with a good experience on the system, but it also includes the folks who may simply get crosswise with an employee and suddenly discover that the employee's way of dealing with that is to start to move in this direction. And I would like to encourage you all to think about how you make sure going forward that the person who's the independent hearing officer but is employed by the same agency that employs the person who sent the exclusionary order in the first place maintains some independence. And I'm going to support the bill. I think the problem is real. I just worry a little bit when we start to delegate police powers unilaterally to people without some real checks and balances in the system. And I'll be gone, but there'll be others here who will, suddenly be asking, should we really have extended the authority this far if it's abused?
Understood.
Thanks.
I would share the same concern, so in the spirit of that. Yes, other witnesses in support.
Yes, I'm Paul Fideli with the Bay Area Rapid Transit District, and we just wanted to thank the Assemblyman and the Sacramento Regional Transit Agency for allowing us to be included in the bill so that we can have the similar authority through prohibition orders to better assure safety and more secure travel on BART in the Bay Area for our riders and our employees. So we encourage the support for this bill.
Thank you.
Kathy Van Osten, Rosenkindle, representing the city of Fresno. Strong support of the bill. Obviously, this has been an important mechanism for the Fresno Area Express to ensure that our transit systems are safe for all riders. So we appreciate the Assemblyman carrying the bill and strongly support the bill.
Gus Corey, on behalf of the California Transit Association, we're in strong support, and we'll pay for higher diesel, if not higher gas. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? All right. Any concluding remarks?
Yes, Senator Simedian, thank you for sharing your concerns. I will make sure that my boss, Assemblymember Dickinson, is aware of them, and if he wishes to come meet with you and talk about it some more, I think that he will be willing to do so.
Thank you. Okay. And I'm prepared to move the bill, but a particular request to the folks from BART that they raise this issue. If you're new to this process, as I understand it, as a result of the authorization in the bill, is that right?
We are. We were amended.
Yeah, the recent amendments added them to the bill.
Particularly with respect to BART, which serves some of the counties in my district, and where respectfully you've had some community relations issues over the years.
We have, and we're obviously very sensitive to rights of citizens. And as you know, we have a new police chief. We have a new office of police auditor and civilian oversight committee. This will be part of that ongoing process.
I just think, the folks who are here from the system who've already been through some of this have probably learned a lot by virtue of having been through it. My mom used to tell me, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. Right. So I'm hoping that as BART rolls this out, you'll have given it enough time and attention before you roll it out so that when you implement the policy that you make a good first impression with the community members and they can thank you and the assembly member for your good work in providing a safe ride for everybody.
We'll make that commitment.
Thank you.
I want to share the same concerns, but maybe even more strongly than Senator Simedian. It's no criticism of the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, but having it being a representative of one of the three original counties, it causes me pause, and to the author, it almost makes me, it just causes me a lot of pause to vote for the bill. So I want to continue to work with all of you in the same spirit that Senator Simedian mentioned. This is a fine line we're all walking. I understand the goals, but sometimes what we want to achieve, we actually set those goals back sometimes if we don't implement it just right. So with that, we have a motion. Secretary to call the roll.
The motion is due pass and we refer to the Committee on Public Safety. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Lowenthal? Havley? Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Simedian? Aye. Simedian, aye.
You have four votes. You need one more, and we'll leave that on call. Next item, I believe, is Assemblymember Gordon. And as they're coming up, we're going to try to do consent, or we will do consent, I should say. So we are on file item. Pardon? Okay. Why don't we go ahead with the much esteemed staff from Assemblymember Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. With the recent adoption of California's new Cal Green building standards, there is a need for the membership of the California Building Standards Commission to reflect the updated standards. AB 930 requires that at least one of the public members of the commission be experienced and knowledgeable in sustainable building, design, construction, and operation. The 2010 California Green Building Standards Code, referred to as CalGreen, went into effect on January 1st, 2011. The new mandatory measures set minimum standards that all structures can realize to minimize significantly the state's overall carbon output. Currently, the Building Standards Commission's 11 members are designated in statute to represent the public, building design professionals, the building and construction industry, local government building officials, fire officials, and labor. While there are various dedicated sectors for members of the BSC to be from, not one of the 11 members is required to be experienced and knowledgeable in sustainable building, design, construction, and/or operation. Additionally, numerous other state boards and commissions require various members to have backgrounds which are aligned with duties and responsibilities of the board or commission on which they sit as members. With the implementation of the new CalGreen standards, this factor is even more important. The need for members of the BSC to have experience in sustainable building, design, construction, and operation is needed now more than ever before. On behalf of Assemblymember Gordon, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support.
Chair, members, Rachel O'Brien, on behalf of the U.S. Green Building Council, we are the sponsors of this legislation. Considering green building's critical role in the emerging California economy and the associated benefits of energy efficiency, environmental health, and job growth, the Building Standards Commission's needs resident expertise in this area. The recent implementation, of course, of CalGreen by the Building Standards Commission makes this need for members of the Building Standards Commission to have an experience in sustainable building, design, construction, and operation more important than ever before. We strongly urge your support in passing this measure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Senators. My name is Jennifer West. I'm with the California Municipal Utilities Association, and we strongly support including a representative on the California Building Standards Commission with sustainable building experience. This is important for a number of reasons, but from our perspective, particularly important to ensure that we achieve water conservation in the urban sector. As you know, in 2009, we
Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to lose what we have left of the committee, so I'm going to ask you to be very concise.
All right. We're very much in support of this bill. We would ask for amendment, however, to define what sustainability. We do not believe this is actually defined in the code, but we think it would help get us to who we need to have on this commission. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Michelle Hook, on behalf of the Sierra Club, California, we strongly support this bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments? Is there a motion? I would move approval. Would you like to have any closing comments? You seem used to public speaking. Perhaps you're a planning commissioner somewhere.
Respectfully urge an aye vote.
All right. I'll ask the Secretary to call roll.
The motion is due pass and we refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desronier?
Aye.
Desronier, aye. Gaines? No. Gaines, no. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Lowenthal? Pavley? Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Simidian? Aye. Simidian, aye.
So we'll leave it on call.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Assemblymember Skinner's bill is AB 1097, item number 16. And before we go to that, what I want to do on the consent before Senator Simidian goes is remove ACR 33 Harkey. That's item number 17. We're going to remove that, and I'll ask for a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll be an aye vote on the consent calendar, but I just want to indicate that I am not voting on AB 849 only because it's coming to the Environmental Quality Committee and want to reserve my prerogatives to take a look at it there if it needs additional amendment.
And you still have a few more minutes so we can go to Skinner's? Okay. So we'll call a question on the consent calendar. It's been moved by Senator Gaines.
Senators Desronier?
Aye.
Desronier, aye. Gaines? Aye. Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? On the consent calendar?
Yes.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
That was far too easy.
Pavley? Rubio? Rubio, aye. Simidian?
I am not voting on AB 849.
Okay, that takes us to file items.
We can do ACR 33 now because there are 5 members.
Oh, yes, yes. Let's go ahead.
All right. So we're going to, on ACR 33 Harkey, Item number 17, we need a vote to waive the rules, and this is similar to last week, where our policy is if there are any no votes, and there was one no vote in the assembly, that it cannot be in consent, so we're going to waive that rule, and I'd ask for a motion to that effect. From Senator Rubio, and we'll call a question.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Pavley?
All we're doing is waiving the rules on Assemblymembers Harkey naming resolution, because the same problem we had last week, there was one no vote in the assembly. So it can't be on consent, so we're waiving that rule.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Rubio, aye. Semidian? Semidian, aye. Okay, the rules are waived.
Okay, the rules are waived. Do we need another motion?
Yes, for the ACR 30.
Okay, we need one more motion to actually approve the ACR. We get a motion for that, Senator Rubio?
Sure.
All right, we'll ask the Secretary to call the roll.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Rubio, aye. Semidian? He's left. Okay.
Yes, no? Not voting. Five votes, so that's sufficient for that to get up. Leave it on call. So you have 2.5 minutes. Go ahead and present.
Thank you. Good evening.
And I didn't mean you individually. I meant
all of
everybody.
us?
Yes.
All right, I'll do it in the one sentence. On behalf of Ms. Skinner, my name is Michael Bedard, Science Fellow. AB 1097 is a simple bill that authorizes transit agencies to give a bidding preference to those who can exceed federal Buy America standards, but only when using federal money for transit projects.
Well done. Spoken like a fellow.
And I'm Paul Fideli again from Bay Area Rapid Transit, and I want to thank the Assemblywoman and the Assembly for voting for this without a no vote, because it will simply allow us to give special bidding preference, as Michael said, to those companies that may come up with a greater than a 60% American-made content. We have found out through our biggest capital effort ever in trying to replace our train cars after 40 years, 40-year-old cars, that the Federal Transit Administration FTA guidelines make it very difficult to encourage a greater than 60% level for American-made rolling stock unless there's a state law that will allow that to happen. This would be the bill that would establish that state law. BART is sponsoring this bill, which supports the goals and efforts of Representative John Garamendi and other Congress folks seeking greater manufacturing jobs in America, and we ask for your support on this.
We always want to support Congressman Garamendi. Gus?
Gus Corey.
Bart's really pushing my patience here.
Gus Corey, on behalf of the California Transit Association, I'll waive most of my comments other than to say that we hope that this bill will help promote domestic manufacturing. As for your aye vote. Thank you.
It's a great bill. Anyone in opposition? All right. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion? Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Any concluding comments?
The bill was on consent in the Assembly, and I urge your aye vote.
Thank you. All right. No, they lost us all. Let's open season on the fellow, the Assembly fellow. We call him affectionately Chairman Emeritus. All right, we'll call a question.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Semidian? Aye. Semidian, aye. The bill is out.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Well done. All right. That bill is out.
Yes.
So we're now going to go back through the agenda, take up the on-call items.
We need a motion on the first item, or 294.
All right, we're going to do item number 4, AB 294, Assemblymember Portantino. We heard this as a subcommittee, so we need a motion. The motion would be to do pass to appropriations.
So moved.
Okay, that's moved by Senator Semidian. We'll call a roll, please.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines? Okay. Harmon? Huff? Aye. Huff, aye. Kehoe? Kehoe, I. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, I. Pavley. Rubio. Rubio, I. Semidian. Semidian, I. Gaines, I. That's out 7-0.
Okay, that bill is out, 7-0. Item number 7, AB 511, was being held for a week. So we're going to work on that bill. So you'll see it again next week. Item number 8, AB 628 by Assemblymember Conway. The motion is due pass to natural resources as amended.
Senator, the current vote is 4-0. Chair, I. Vice Chair hasn't voted. Senator Gaines. Gaines, I. Harmon. Kehoe. Pavley. Rubio. Rubio, I. 6 votes.
That bill has 6 votes. That's sufficient for passage. Let's see. Item number 9, AB 650, Blumenfeld.
The motion is due pass to the Committee on Rules. The current vote is 3-2. Chair, I. Vice Chair, no. Senators Harmon. Kehoe. Pavley. Rubio. Rubio, I. It's 4-2.
That's a 4-2. That's insufficient for passage. We will grant reconsideration. Let's see. Item number 10, AB 674 by...
So that bill failed?
That bill failed.
Yes.
I'm sorry. And reconsideration is granted. So 4 votes. We need 5 votes for passage. That bill only received 4 votes, so it failed, and we are granting reconsideration. Item number 10, AB 674 by Assemblymember Bonilla.
The motion is due pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 2-2. Chair, I. Vice Chair, no. Senators Harmon. Kehoe. Kehoe, I. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, I. Pavley. Rubio. Rubio, I. It's 5-2. It's out.
The vote is 5-2. That's sufficient for passage. That bill is out. 11 is Assemblymember Amiano, 683.
We need a motion.
And this one, we need a motion. The motion would be to do pass to appropriations. Is there a motion? Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. We'll call the roll.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon? Huff? No. Huff, no. Kehoe? Lowenthal? Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Rubio, aye. Semidian? Semidian, aye. It's 4-2. Fails.
We'll leave that one on call. Let's see, number 12, AB 716.
The motion is due pass to the Committee on Public Safety. The current vote is 4-0. Chair, I. Vice Chair, I. Senators Harmon. Huff. Huff, I. Kehoe. Kehoe, I. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, I. Pavley. That bill is out 6-0.
That bill is 6-0. That's sufficient. 7-0. That's sufficient for passage. That bill is out.
13.
Our next item is 13, AB 720 by Assemblymember Hall.
The motion is due pass as amended to the Committee on Governance and Finance. The current vote is 3-0. Chair hasn't voted. Vice Chair, aye. Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Harmon.
With the amendments, yes. Yes.
Harmon. Huff. Huff, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Rubio. Rubio, aye. 7-0.
That's 7-0. That bill is out. 15 by Assemblymember Gordon is AB 930.
Motion is due pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 3-1. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senators Harmon. Huff. No. Huff, no. Kehoe. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Item 15.
It's AB.
Okay. Kehoe, aye. That's out 5-2.
That bill is 5-2. That's sufficient for passage. That bill is out.
And the consent calendar.
Consent calendar.
On the consent calendar, Senators Harmon. Huff. Huff, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. That's it. That's out 7-0.
The consent calendar is passed 7-0. Those bills are out.
ACR 33.
ACR 33 is item number 17, Assemblymember Harkey.
it's part of the consent calendar that we
Right.
waived the rules
This was
on.
part of the consent calendar. We waived the rules to remove it because they had one no vote in the Assembly.
Senators Harmon, Huff. Huff, aye. Pavley, Semidion. So that bill is out. Yes, 6-0.
Yes, you did. Its vote is 6-0. That bill is out. Se-
No, Semidion's off.
Senator Semidion was off. It's
Yeah, but he was off.
6-0.
Because it's going to.
Trust us. Trust the Democratic leadership on this bill. I know that's frustrating. What have we got left? Right. And she's not there. Okay. Yeah, we have one item that's on call, and this is Assemblymember Amiano's bill. You're set. That's what we've got. So we'll ask the Secretary to call the roll on Assemblymember Amiano's bill, please.
Senators Harmon, Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Pavley. That bill is out 5-2.
That bill is out, has 5 bills sufficient for passage, so it's out 5-2. I believe that's all. Thank you, members, for your patience. Thank you to the Vice Chair for chairing a good deal of the committee, and we are adjourned. Thank you to staff.